That dust. Oh. So 3 months ago, I posted a review of this InWin Alice case. It was a $55 case that I gave it an overall positive review, but there were some things looming over it that I definitely thought it needed some more time to give you guys a more accurate review. So 3 months later, I've done an assessment. We're going to take down this little guard here, the little cloth that's keeping the dust out, and we'll see how well it does at keeping the dust out, and just do an overall look at the case one more time to see if it's worth that $55. In my first review, you guys left your comments and thoughts about the case, and you were pretty honest and just gave me a lot of things to think about that I didn't think about in my initial review. So I really want to thank every one of you who has contributed in the comment section in your thoughts on this case, because you definitely opened my mind to some things I didn't think about. So first thing that you guys were concerned about is whether or not $55 was really considered a budget-friendly case for something like this. Sure, $55 is not something that's going to break your bank, but with a lack of features and a cheap plastic frame, you're losing a lot of features that cases at the same price point give you. So you're not getting a USB ports anywhere on the case. They're also going to be supported directly on the motherboard, which can only be accessed through this cover, which is popped off like so. Also, you don't have quick access to your power supply if you're using the cloth cover, so you would have to tear down the cover in order to gain access to the power supply, or feel blindly through the cloth to try and turn off the switch. In my previous video, I had strong concerns about this cloth, whether or not it would be durable, also that it is a pain in the rear end to put on and take off every time. And I purchased this case for myself to use as a test bench, and test benches are typically supposed to be easy and very accessible. Now, if I leave the cover off, I don't have that issue, obviously, and everything else is mostly easy. But if you are trying to keep dust out of your system, you're definitely going to want to have the cloth cover on, and that's something I would want. But it is such a chore to take on and put on and take off that it's just such a negative. And the fact that it is so large, it's just so inconvenient right now. But I still maintain that it is a light case, so that would make it decent enough for traveling if you're looking for something light. But because of its enormous size, that also is a negative as well. Now back to this cover. I mentioned durability being an issue, something I was concerned about. I didn't have any issues with it while I was doing the initial test, but now 3 months later, there is a tear in this cloth. We'll give you guys a close-up here. Now, this tear actually came very shortly after I posted my initial review, so it didn't take long for this to start to tear. And I believe mostly the tearing has to do with the way you have to stretch it over all of these rough ridges going up the side of the case. That is exactly where the tear happened. So that is my conclusion, is these rough ridges, plastic ridges, that are going to be tearing the cloth for a lot of people. And then next, I am going to go ahead and tear the cloth down. I'm going to move the cloth down on the case, and we're going to take a look inside and see how well it performed in keeping dust out of the system. Once I take the cloth down, you'll notice one difference from my initial test, and that was that I did a kind of a vertical mount on the GPU, which I didn't test during my thermal tests on the GPU in my multiple configurations. So I'm gonna go ahead and tear this cloth down. I'll do it in real time, but probably fast forward a little bit, just to give you guys a little bit of an idea how much of a pain it is to take this thing off. All right, so initial look here, this bottom portion is just blasted with a layer of dust on this little wall here where the SSDs and hard drives would be. The fans are caked in dust. That dust, so let me get on my telephoto lens and give you guys a little bit of a close-up on how all of this looks. So looking here at the GPU, you can kind of tell while the fan is moving that there is definitely some dust settling there into those fins. And let's move down to the real problem here, and that is that fine layer of dust on the back wall. And you can see that they're all caked in there on the bottom fans. One thing you want to consider with these fans is that bottom mount is actually all meant for radiator mounting, so it's not really meant for airflow like this. It is kind of marketed as a water cooling case because they do provide gaskets and everything for water cooling on a radiator down there. So we're not exactly using the case that it's really marketed for, that as far as I can tell, but does not do a great job in keeping the dust out there on the bottom. It is absolutely disgusting in there. One thing that I should mention about this whole thing is that my house is just a breeding ground for dust, especially with 2 dogs. So this is probably a worst case scenario. If your house is not filled with dust 24/7, no matter how often you clean, that you just can never get dust out of your house, then you're probably going to have a case that looks like this if you're using something like I am right here. But if you have a nice clean house and you don't have any issues with dust like I do, then you probably won't have issues like this, at least not to this extent. So those are all the main points that I really wanted to go over with you guys on the update on this case, whether or not the dust filter did a good job in keeping dust out of the case, and whether or not that dust cover actually held up over time. As you can see, it failed on both ends. So really the dust cover is almost pointless at this point. So it's not a selling factor. The $55 price point, I'm going to let you guys decide that on your own in the comment section. Is $55 a fair price for this case? It's a cheap plastic frame, something you could probably build yourself if you're handy and crafty. But it also is missing all those USB ports that a lot of cases come with at cheaper price points or the same price point. And it also comes with a steel or aluminum frame. So all things to consider. Another thing is this case does not come with any fans. So all things to consider when you're looking at a case like this. I think it is marketed also towards a test bench idea, but as I said with that dust cover, it makes it such a pain, almost not worth using as a test bench, especially because of its enormous size. All right, so to wrap things up, in my initial review, I did give it a positive review. At this point, I am going to have to take that positive review back. I still like it for its unique look and just different take on going with a ATX enclosure. But with the fact that the dust filter failed so quickly and also did not really provide any dust prevention, I'm going to go ahead and say that this case is a fail at this time. Still a unique idea, and I would like to see them do something unique like this again in the future, but maybe improve on it. Add some USB 3.0 ports, USB Type-C if you can, but not necessary. Shrink it down a little. This could be a lot smaller, and I'm fine with the plastic frame. I'm fine with the mesh cover, but just it needs to have some things done to optimize it and make it a lot better in keeping the dust out, as well as just not tearing. So I think that is going to be it for this video, guys. If you liked it, give it a like. If you want to see more from us, hit that subscribe button and the bell, and we'll see you guys in the next video.